From translation, Net New English Translation. This 100th day of the year. Today we are reading passages 2 Samuel 19 to 21. 2 Samuel chapter 19, verses 1 to 43. The king covered his face and cried out loud, "My son Absalom! My son Absalom! Would that I had died instead of you, Absalom, my son, my son." Joab came to the king and said, "You have shamed today all your servants who have saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters, and the lives of your wives and concubines. You love those who hate you and hate those who love you, for you have made it clear today that your commanders and servants mean nothing to you. I can see that if Absalom were alive today and all of us were dead, you would be pleased." The king said to Joab, "Get up, let us take back the city." Then the king said to Joab, "I swear by the Lord that I would prefer to be in a tent in the open country than to live in this palace with all these troubles." But the king said to Joab, "I want you to take all the men with you and bring back my son Absalom." But Joab replied, "May the Lord your God add 100 sons to you, my lord the king. Why should the king listen to you and do what you say? You are asking me to bring back your son, but you have already given me orders to kill him." The king said to Joab, "Very well, I give you permission. Do as you think best." So Joab went out and posted a guard at the gate of the city. He then went to Gilead and brought Absalom back to Jerusalem. Now the people of Israel were all arguing among themselves in their camps. Each tribe was saying to the others, "The king has delivered us from the hand of our enemies and has saved us from the hand of the Philistines. But now he has fled from the land because of Absalom. But Absalom, whom we anointed to rule over us, has died in battle. So why are you silent about bringing the king back?" King David sent messengers throughout all Israel, saying, "As for you, be at ease toward your brother Absalom." But they would not listen to the king. For the people were more stubborn than the king in this matter. The king said to Amasa, "Assemble all the men of Judah within 3 days and be here with me." So Amasa assembled all the men of Judah. They were also with him within 3 days. The king said to Joab, "Bring the young man Absalom back here." So the king went as far as the Jordan. All the men of Judah came to Gilgal to meet the king and bring him across the Jordan. Shimei son of Gera, the Benjaminite from Bahurim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David. There were 1,000 Benjaminites with him, along with Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants. They rushed to the Jordan to the king to bring him across. The king crossed to the other side, and Ziba and all the men of his household helped him cross the stream. The king also blessed Ziba and said, "Why have you done this?" Ziba replied to the king, "May your servant find favor in your sight, my lord the king, for when your servant heard that my lord the king was on his way back, I went out to meet him, but the king delayed coming back from the Jordan." Ziba said to the king, "May my lord the king remember that your servant came to meet you with all that was his, when you were on your way from Mahanaim." Then Shimei son of Gera fell before the king as he was about to cross the Jordan. Shimei said to the king, "My lord the king, please do not hold me guilty or remember the wrong that your servant did on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king not take it to heart." Abishai son of Zeruiah said, "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this because he cursed the Lord's anointed?" But David said, "What have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? Should anyone be put to death in Israel today? For don't I know today that I am king over Israel?" The king said to Shimei, "You will not die." And the king swore an oath to him. Mephibosheth son of Jonathan came down to meet the king. He had not trimmed his mustache or washed his clothes from the day the king left until the day he returned in safety. When he came from Jerusalem to meet the king said to him, "Why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth?" He replied, "My lord the king, since your servant went with you, why should I care what happens to me? How could I ask the king to take me back with him? For all of your servant's household was nothing to him, even your servant himself, when you came to the Jordan. But your servant has asked the king to let him cross over the Jordan." The king said to him, "Why do you say such things? I have seen for myself that you and Ziba divided up the land." The king said to him, "You and Ziba shall divide the land." Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rogelim to cross the Jordan with the king, to send him on his way from there. Now Barzillai was very old, 80 years of age. He had provided for the king while he stayed at Mahanaim, for he was a very wealthy man. The king said to Barzillai, "Cross over with me and stay with me in Jerusalem, and I will provide for you." But Barzillai said to the king, "How long will your servant live, that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? I am today 80 years old. Can I discern what is good and what is not? Can your servant taste what he eats and drinks? Can I still hear the voice of singing men and women? Why should your servant be an additional burden to the king? Your servant will cross over the Jordan with a little of the king's household. Why should the king do such a great thing as this? Let your servant return, that I may die in my own city, near the grave of my father and mother. But here is your servant Chimham. Let him cross over with the king. Do for whatever you think best for your servant." The king replied, Chimham shall cross over with me, and I will do for him whatever you wish. And whatever you request for yourself, I will do for you. As the king crossed the Jordan, all the men of Judah came to Gilgal to meet the king and bring him across the Jordan. But the men of Israel came to the king and said to him, Why have our brothers, the men of Judah, stolen you away and brought the king and his household across the Jordan, along with all of David's men with him? All the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, Because the king is our close relative. Why are you angry about this? Have we eaten at the king's expense, or has he given us any gifts? The men of Israel replied to the men of Judah, We have 10 shares in the king, so we have more claim to David than you do. Why do you treat us with contempt? Were we not the first to speak of bringing back our king? But the men of Judah replied more fiercely than the men of Israel. A man from Benjamin said, We must speak well of the king, for if no one does so, he will hold it against us all. 2 Samuel chapter 20, verses 1 to 26. A scoundrel named Sheba son of Bichri happened to be there. He blew a trumpet and said, We have no share in David, we have no inheritance in the son of Jesse, every man to his tent, Israel. So all the men of Israel deserted David and followed Sheba son of Bichri. But the men of Judah remained loyal to their king, and came from the Jordan to Jerusalem with him. When the king arrived at his palace, the king took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace and placed them under guard. He provided for them but did not have sexual relations with them. They were kept in confinement until the day of their death, living like widows. The king said to Amasa, Assemble all the men of Judah within 3 days and be here with me. So Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the king had specified. David said to Abishai, Sheba son of Bichri will do us more harm than Absalom did. Take your lord's servants and pursue him, lest he get away to some fortified city and escape us. So Joab's men and the Kerethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men went out under the command of Abishai and pursued Sheba son of Bichri. They were at the great stone in Gibeon when Amasa came to meet them. Joab was wearing his military attire, and over it was a belt with a dagger strapped at his waist. As Amasa approached, Joab drew the dagger from his belt and stabbed him in the stomach, and his intestines spilled out onto the ground. He did not need to stab him again, and Amasa died. Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba son of Bichri, but Amasa's blood was absorbed into the ground, and when no one came to pursue Joab, he returned to the king in Jerusalem. Joab went to Sheba son of Bichri and threw his body over the wall of the city, and the people of the city cut off Sheba's head and threw it to Joab. Then Joab blew a trumpet and the army returned to the city, each going to his home. Joab returned to the king in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the middle of the road. When the man saw that all the people had stopped, he dragged Amasa off the road and into a field, and threw a garment over him to conceal the bloodstain. After he had removed Amasa from the road, all the men passed by and followed Joab to pursue Sheba son of Bichri. Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel Beit Maachah. All the Berites assembled and followed him as well. All the men of Joab's army came and besieged him in Abel Beit Maachah. They built up a siege ramp against the city, and it stood against the outer wall of the city. While they were battering the wall to demolish it, a wise woman cried out from the city, Listen, listen, tell Joab to come here that I may speak with him. When he came near, she said, Are you Joab? I am, he replied. She said, Listen to what your servant has to say. Joab said, Go ahead, I'm listening. She said, Long ago people used to say, Let them inquire at Abel, and that settled the matter. I am one of those who are loyal and peaceable. You are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the Lord's inheritance? Joab replied, Far be it from me to swallow up or to destroy. That is not the case. A man from the hill country of Ephraim named Sheba son of Bichri has rebelled against the king. Hand him over alone, and I will withdraw from the city. The woman said to Joab, His head will be thrown down to you from the wall. Then the woman went to all the people with her wise counsel. They cut off the head of Sheba son of Bichri and threw it to Joab. So he blew a trumpet and they dispersed from the city, each going to his home. Joab returned to the king in Jerusalem. Joab was over the entire army of Israel. Benaiah son of Jehoiada was over the Kerethites and Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of forced labor. Jehoshaphat son of Ahilud was recorder. Sheva was scribe. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. Ira son of Ikesh was from Tekoa. Over the army was Joab son of Zeruiah. 2 Samuel chapter 21, verses 1 to 14. There was a famine in the days of David for 3 consecutive years. David sought the face of the Lord. The Lord said, It is because of Saul and his blood-stained house, because he put the Gibeonites to death. So the king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel. They were survivors of the Amorites. The Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul had tried to wipe them out in his zeal for the people of Israel and Judah. David asked the Gibeonites, What should I do for you? How can I make amends so that you may bless the Lord's inheritance? The Gibeonites answered him, We have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his house. Nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death. David asked, What then should I do for you? They replied to the king, As for the man who slaughtered us, and who planned to wipe us out, so we would no longer be living in any territory of Israel. Let 7 of his male descendants be given to us, so we may put them to death in the presence of the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one. So the king said, I will give them to you. The king spared Mephibosheth son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took 2 of the sons of Rizpah daughter of Aiah, whom she had borne to Saul, and the 5 sons of Merab daughter of Saul, whom she had borne to Adriel son of Barzillai the Mehalathite. He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who executed them on the hill before the Lord. All 7 of them died together. They were put to death during the first days of the harvest, at the beginning of the barley harvest. Rizpah daughter of Aiah took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest until the rain fell on them from the sky, she did not allow the birds of the air to touch them by day, or the wild animals by night. When David was told what Rizpah daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan from the leaders of Jabesh Gilead. They had stolen them from the public square at Beit Shan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down on Gilboa. David brought the bones of Saul and Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been executed were also gathered. They buried the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son in the tomb of Kish his father at Zelah in Benjamin. After they had done everything the king commanded, God answered their prayer for the land.